Shiesty, man. I don't know who writing his lyrics. The devil? How that boy think of all that shit? As young as he is, man, how that little nigga think all that shit? How he know about all them? How he know how to kill the way he kill?
Charleston White just crossed paths with T.I.'s parents. And let me tell you, these aren't just any parents. We're talking about two of the most feared OGs out of Memphis, straight up legends in those streets. What went down when these certified gangsters stepped to Charleston about disrespecting their son is pure madness. You won't believe how wild it got. Charleston had been popping off online again, running that mouth about a young man whose bloodline runs deep in Memphis history, way deeper than Charleston could ever imagine. What happened when real street royalty confronted this internet loudmouth? It's crazier than anything you've seen on your feed, and yes, we got the proof to back it up. Now let's keep it real. Charleston White been talking reckless about T.I. ever since the dude got locked up, saying wild stuff like prison was gonna humble him and how the white man was gonna teach him lessons. That's been Charleston's whole online hustle, talking slick on live, chasing views off other people's pain. But this time, all that big talk caught up with him when he ran into folks who don't play about family, especially when it comes to disrespect.
And she came up to me and said, "Hey, I'm Pooh Shiesty mama." And I had just said some about that boy. And she said, I ain't like what you said. And
Don't get it twisted. This wasn't your regular internet beef or some clout-chasing stunt. Charleston had no clue he was about to come face to face with the woman who raised one of Memphis's most authentic street rappers, and the man once feared as one of the city's most respected kingpins. These aren't some regular parents showing up to talk. These are certified street legends, built from decades of surviving Memphis at its rawest. Here's where things get spicy. This showdown was bound to happen the moment Charleston turned PTI's incarceration into his internet content. So let's talk about who PTI's mama really is, because this lady ain't your everyday mother figure. She's a real one, a street-certified woman whose story sounds like something straight out of a Netflix crime drama. PTI's mother grew up in the rough blocks of South Memphis, the same streets that birthed legends like Yo Gotti and Young Dolph. But unlike a lot of women who just ride along with their man's lifestyle, she was already in the mix before she met the mob boss. She knew the rules, understood the danger, and played the game with cold precision. When she connected with mob boss, it wasn't no fairy tale love story. It was two soldiers linking up to build an empire in the middle of a battlefield. Their bond was tested through everything: federal heat, rival crews trying to take over, and the non-stop pressure of holding down their name in a city where one wrong move could end it all. What made their bond truly powerful wasn't just love, it was vision. They both knew the streets were just a stepping stone, not the final destination. When mob boss got caught up facing federal time, his queen held it down like a general, keeping the family tight, the money flowing, and their name strong in Memphis while he fought for his freedom. She wasn't just holding the house together, she was managing an empire. Balancing money, dealing with heavy hitters, and keeping everything in line took serious street smarts and political moves most people could never pull off. Every choice she made could have been life or death, yet she handled it like a pro. The respect she earned out there wasn't handed to her, she earned it through years of proving she could survive when one wrong call could have cost her everything. She was moving through federal investigations, sidestepping rival crews, handling betrayal from within, all while keeping her family safe and the operation running smooth. This wasn't some woman caught up in her man's hustle. She was a boss in her own right, understanding every move, every risk, every player in the game. And her impact on Ty, man, that can't be overlooked. Mob boss might have schooled him on how the business side of the streets worked, but it was his mama who taught him the real lessons: survival, loyalty, and never letting the world see you break. She made sure he knew how to move smart, stay strong, and stand tall even when the odds were stacked against him.
You know, Ma, I think, I won't say her husband, but Pooh Shiesty daddy represent another faction of Rap-A-Lot, but it's not Rap-A-Lot. When she said that, me and that white boy took off running from her. Yeah, she scared me because she kind of gangster, and I ain't said nothing about it.
She even balanced it all by making sure Pooh stayed focused on school while she managed a whole underground operation. That's strength, that's strategy. But things take a darker turn right here. This story goes deeper than street reputation and family legacy. When Charleston White started running his mouth, mocking her son, cheering over his incarceration like it was entertainment. He had no clue who he was talking about. He was speaking on the child of a woman who has survived the kind of chaos that breaks most people. This lady went head to head with the feds, outlasted rival crews who tried to wipe her family out and still never folded once. She's been through wars most can't imagine, and Charleston disrespected that? But here's the real twist. Let's bring in Steve's father, Lanray Williams, better known around Memphis as Mob Boss. This man wasn't just putting on a front for attention like these online wannabes. He was the streets. His name carried weight long before social media ever existed. His empire was so tight and complex that it took federal agents months of deep surveillance just to figure out how far his web stretched. The title Mob Boss wasn't some nickname made for clout. It was earned through years of moving serious weight, building loyalty, and running operations with the precision of a general. This man had the game on lock, from the Mississippi Delta all the way to the Arkansas line, using that I-55 interstate like it was his personal business route. His network was wild. Truck drivers who could move shipments across states, insiders who warned him before the feds made a move, and street soldiers who ride or die for his name without hesitation. But what made Mob Boss stand apart from the average street hustler was how smart he played the game. He knew the biggest mistake most dealers made, getting high on their own supply, both literally and mentally. While others were out here flashing stacks, buying cars, and shooting up corners, Mob Boss ran his operation like a CEO runs a corporation. He wasn't chasing attention, he was building longevity. He flipped his street profits into real investments, real estate, stash houses disguised as rental homes, and legit businesses that gave his people jobs and a cover for income. He kept things so smooth that even law enforcement couldn't tell where the streets ended and the legal side began. His golden rule: stay under the radar, but keep the money flowing steady. That's when he founded Mob Tire Records, a fully independent label that became his clean front for everything. It gave him a valid reason to travel, a smart way to explain big cash transactions, and most importantly, a path to earn respect outside the chaos of the streets. But here's where things take a turn, and this is where it starts sounding like a scene straight out of a crime thriller. In 2007, Memphis police had been tailing one of Mob Boss's crews for over a month. They locked in on a quiet little apartment over on 784 Porter Street, a place that looked run down from the outside, but was really a fully loaded trap house inside. The spot was chosen perfectly. A dead-end street, no heavy police patrol, and neighbors who minded their business. It was the ideal setup. Now picture this, the day the cops decided to make their move. Search warrants in hand, unmarked cars everywhere, and tension thick in the air. Detective Cottrell Robinson was the first to bust through that door, and the second they went in, all hell broke loose. People yelling, stuff flying, pure chaos erupting in every direction. Mob Boss's own cousin, Rico Johnson, tried to make a run for it, bolting from apartment 4 straight into apartment 3. But he didn't make it far before everything exploded into madness. Glass was flying everywhere as someone jumped straight out the kitchen window. Total chaos. And then, out of nowhere, a massive 75-pound pit bull came storming around the corner, locked in on the cops like a missile. Detective Cottrell Robinson had to fire 3 shots before that dog finally backed off, retreating to the kitchen where it went down. But let's be real, that dog wasn't some family pet. It was part of the security system for the whole operation. In the drug game, a dog like this ain't just there for show. A trained pit like this serves multiple purposes. It scares off robbers, warns when a raid's about to go down, and if it's trained right, it can even destroy evidence before cops get to it. The fact that this dog charged armed officers without hesitation tells you exactly how tight Mob Boss kept his setup. This wasn't random, it was strategy.
Man, that's a dangerous
When the smoke finally cleared and the police started searching, what they uncovered painted a clear picture of how advanced Mob Boss's empire really was. They found 12.5 grams of cocaine, 8 pounds of top-shelf weed, digital scales lined up on the kitchen counter, measuring cups by the stove ready for cooking crack, a Smith & Wesson sitting on the couch, and $10,000 cash tucked right into Mob Boss's own pocket. That's not some amateur hustle. That's a full-scale operation. Now here's where things get dark, because what came next took his street legacy to a whole different level of controversy. Back in 2004, my boss got caught up in one of Memphis's most shocking murder cases, the killing of Rebecca Glenn, a 24-year-old radio DJ who was found strangled inside her apartment by a man named Stanley Andrews. But here's the twist. My boss was charged as an accessory after the fact to first-degree murder, and that's not even the craziest part. Word on the streets was that Rebecca had been spinning Yo Gotti's records heavy on her show, but refused to give any airplay to my boss or artists signed under his Mob Tie Records. In Memphis, that kind of move wasn't just about music. Radio play meant power, reputation, and money. Some people claim my boss took it as straight disrespect and allegedly ordered a hit on her to send a message. Nothing was ever proven in court, but just the rumors showed how feared and influential he really was. What was confirmed, though, made the city gasp. After Rebecca's murder, my boss and a woman named Marquita Thomas were caught using the victim's credit cards and selling off her stolen belongings. That's cold, using a dead woman's accounts like that. The case shook Memphis to its core, showing how blurred the line had become between the city's booming music scene and its ruthless street underworld. The investigation dug up disturbing details about how Rebecca's final moments went down. Reports said Stanley Andrews slipped past building security, wandering the halls and knocking on random doors like he was lost. When Rebecca opened her door to check what was going on, Andrews forced his way inside, wrapped his hands around her neck, and strangled her before robbing her apartment. It was a chilling, senseless act that left the city speechless. Even Andrews' own sister couldn't wrap her head around it. She told Action News 5 that her brother had called her from jail, saying Rebecca went off on him for knocking on her door before it all went bad. It was one of those moments that exposed how much power radio DJs really held back then. They weren't just playing songs, they were gatekeepers, deciding who got shine and who stayed underground. And in a city like Memphis, that kind of power made them targets. If an artist or label felt disrespected, it could turn deadly fast. And Rebecca Glenn's case proved it. My boss ended up catching charges for being an accessory and for first-degree forgery. But somehow, he dodged the worst of it. He walked away with just 1 year of supervised probation. That's it. No hard time, no major sentence. It should have been his wake-up call, a clear sign to leave the streets alone. But for a man like my boss, the game had its hooks in too deep. The streets were calling louder than common sense. And that's the world T.I. or Pooh Shiesty grew up around. Violence, loyalty, power, and pain all mixed into one lifestyle that shaped who he became. So when Charleston White started running his mouth online, clowning that environment like it was some kind of joke, those Memphis OGs took it personal.
Charleston wasn't just talking reckless. He was celebrating a young black man's downfall like it was entertainment. After Pooh got sentenced to 63 months in federal prison, Charleston hopped on his live streams, laughing it up like the whole situation was comedy. He was talking wild, saying Pooh was out here before prison, crashing out, shooting up clubs and shooting people like it was nothing, treating the streets like it was a video game, GTA in real life. And then Charleston took it further, mocking Pooh's sentence like it was payback. He laughed, saying now Pooh would have to follow the rules, couldn't crash out anymore, and that the white man was gonna teach him a lesson. He even started using that fake preacher tone he does online, saying that white man don't play. They got that boy on what they call a probated sentence, called probation. Get him. They call it PO. Them POs make you walk that straight line. They gave that boy PTI. He gonna be tight, open like a... We ain't gonna have no problems out of Pooh. He was literally mocking the idea of a young man being under strict federal watch like it was something to celebrate. He treated another man's punishment like a punchline. And that's the kind of disrespect that made those Memphis OGs see red. When word of Charleston's comments reached Pooh's family, especially his mother and father, it wasn't just about social media chatter anymore. To them, it was a line crossed too far. It wasn't internet talk, it was personal. Charleston went on running his mouth, saying all them need probation officers. The best thing the white man can do to a gangster is give him a probation or parole officer. But what really rubbed people the wrong way was how he said it, laughing like it was a joke. He mocked how T.I. or Pooh used to be a menace in the streets, but now, according to him, would be harmless. He said, "You used to be bad in the streets. Look at you now, twittering in the metaverse world. You used to shoot guns. Now that little typing noise in your ears sound way better than that gun." That kind of disrespect hit deep, especially in Memphis, where street pride runs generations deep. For people who really know the culture, mocking a man's fall and clowning the family behind him isn't just internet talk. That's crossing sacred lines. Charleston wasn't cracking jokes anymore. He was poking at family honor, and that's something you just don't play with. He wasn't just talking slick. He was celebrating the young man's incarceration, bragging about how he'd now be under control when he got out. That's what made folks furious. And to make it worse, Charleston started acting like he knew what was best for Ty's life, talking like prison would fix him and make him a better person. That's beyond arrogant. That's straight up condescending, especially from someone who's never lived that life. See, that's where things went left fast, because Ty's parents had heard enough. These weren't social media characters or wannabe influencers chasing clout. These were real street veterans, people who had lived through the kind of storms Charleston just talks about on camera. They'd survived raids, rival beefs, and the kind of pressure most people couldn't handle for a day. So when they decided to confront Charleston, it wasn't about going viral. It was about respect. No phones, no Instagram Live, no hashtags, just that old school face-to-face talk where things get settled the real way. They didn't come for drama, they came for answers. When Charleston found himself standing in front of Ty's parents, that loud online energy vanished fast. The air changed immediately. That real recognizes real kind of silence hit the room. Charleston suddenly realized this wasn't another debate with bloggers or trolls. He was face to face with people who had actually lived the life he jokes about. These weren't just parents, these were survivors of the Memphis underworld. Folks who'd seen indictments, street wars, betrayals, and still came out standing. When they stepped to him, it wasn't about likes or content, it was about principle.
The whole vibe shifted. You could see it in Charleston's body language. The man who talks wild behind the screen suddenly looked uncomfortable. His tone dropped, his hands fidgeted, and you could tell he finally realized the gravity of the situation. Ty's parents made it crystal clear. Disrespecting their son, mocking his sentence, and laughing about his pain was not something they'd ever tolerate again. They didn't need to raise their voices or make threats. Their presence said everything. The message was simple and final. Some things don't belong online, and playing with a family's name carries real-world consequences. By the time Charleston walked away, the man who built his brand on controversy knew he'd crossed the line he couldn't uncross, and he'd just learned what happens when internet talk meets real life. The man who had been laughing and cracking jokes about T.I.'s federal case suddenly wasn't so bold anymore once he stood face to face with the young man's real family. The moment that confrontation went down, Charleston's whole attitude flipped. The smirk disappeared, the jokes stopped, and the loudmouth act faded quick. The same guy who had been using Pooh Shiesty's pain as clickbait suddenly started apologizing, for real. He looked those parents in the eye and promised he'd never bring up Pooh's name again in his videos. That's a serious reality check right there. Imagine going from talking wild on live streams, laughing about someone's downfall, to straight up telling their parents, "I won't mention your child again." That's not just backtracking, that's being humbled in real time. It was the perfect example of the huge gap between internet tough talk and real street business. Charleston built his whole online brand off tearing down street culture, clowning young black men from that life, calling them lost or ignorant, all while making a profit from their pain. But when he was finally standing in front of real ones, people who had actually lived that struggle, the whole energy shifted instantly. There's a big difference between talking about the streets and facing the streets. At the core of all this, it wasn't just Charleston versus Pooh's parents. It was about respect. It was about loyalty, legacy, and understanding that no amount of views or likes makes it okay to violate someone's family name. Charleston learned a lesson that night. Online performance might get attention, but in the real world, it doesn't protect you from consequences. Because when you deal with people who carry real street credentials, your online persona don't mean a thing. You can't hide behind the camera when you're in front of people who've lived through raids, indictments, and losses that most can't imagine. And for Pooh's family, it wasn't about revenge. It was about defending honor. In their world, letting disrespect slide is seen as weakness, and weakness can be dangerous. They weren't chasing fame, they were protecting their name, making sure their son's reputation stayed solid while he couldn't defend himself. That's loyalty at its rawest form. And honestly, the way they handled it showed the difference between generations in the street world. Mob Boss and his wife came from an older code, one built on discipline, silence, and principle. They weren't out here looking for internet clout. They moved with strategy, not chaos. For them, respect was worth more than any fame or cash flow.
This whole ordeal was bigger than just Charleston White's mouth. It shined a light on something way deeper, how toxic internet culture has become. Too many people today make money off other people's pain, turning real-life tragedies into entertainment for clicks. Charleston was literally profiting from another man's incarceration, treating a young black man's lowest moment like a comedy skit. That's not just disrespectful, it's disturbing. The real question now is, will Charleston actually keep that promise? Will he really stay quiet and show some respect? Or will he slide back into his old habits once the heat cools down and he thinks everyone forgot what happened? Because one thing's for sure, that confrontation changed how a lot of folks see him. Charleston might still talk slick online, but after standing in front of that Memphis royalty, he knows now, not everything belongs on the internet, and not everyone you talk about is gonna stay behind the screen. One thing's for sure, Charleston White finally learned that T.I. comes from a family that does not play when it comes to respect and loyalty. That encounter wasn't just another internet moment. It was a real-life reminder that behind every rapper's story, there's a family that's been through real struggle, real pain, and real survival. When you mock someone's downfall or joke about their legal problems, you're not just clowning that individual, you're disrespecting an entire bloodline that fought hard to survive a world most people couldn't handle. Charleston found that out the hard way when he ran into Ty's parents, two Memphis OGs who lived by respect, not retweets. This confrontation wasn't about going viral, it was about setting boundaries, showing that even in today's internet-driven world, some lines are sacred and can't be crossed. The moment those parents stood in front of Charleston, the internet noise stopped and real accountability stepped in. He learned, maybe for the first time, that behind the screens and streams, there are real people with pride, history, and legacy. Now the question is, do you think Charleston White truly learned his lesson, or will he slide back into that reckless talk once the spotlight fades? Let's hear it from you. Drop your thoughts down in the comments. Tell us what you think about this whole situation. Did Charleston finally get humbled, or is this just another chapter in his long list of controversies? And before you go, make sure to like, subscribe, share, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next breakdown on the real stories behind hip-hop's biggest dramas. The street's been talking, and now you know the truth about what really went down when Charleston White met his match. Two Memphis legends who stood tall for family, respect, and real loyalty. That's real accountability right there. Because no matter how big your platform gets, there are still consequences for crossing the wrong line.